Hello and welcome to the OLM Issue Triage. Today is Thursday, March 31st. Let's start by taking a look at some of the open issues against OLM. First up, we have catalog source pod is not recreated when transitioned to the terminated state. Okay, have a catalog source, generates a pod, node gets restarted, replaced. Pod is not replaced. Pod is recreated. So I think this is a symptom of the fact that the catalog source pods that OLM creates are not managed by a built-in controller like a replica set or a deployment, or rather they're being handled by OLM directly. And so in certain conditions, I guess in this case, the node gets recycled. It can cause the pod to go down in a way such that OLM doesn't bounce it back up. Right, and the issue describes existing issue around this topic. And this has been a fairly contentious topic that we've kind of looked at before, where we think about using a deployment or replica set to back the catalog pod, but we haven't implemented that. It's not done at the time. So think,
is this something that we really want to fix?
I think that it is generally, it's poor UX to not have a pod in this case be managed by a built-in controller, because it causes problems with draining the node, and it causes problems in this case with like having it come back up consistently. I don't know that there is enough buy-in, I guess, from the OLM side that this should be, we should replace the existing catalog source code to spin off a replica set versus a pod.
Mm-hmm.
But you can see how if we change the code such that every catalog pod would be managed by a replica set with a count of 1, for example, a lot of these issues would go away.
And why is there not buy-in for that?
Well, partially in the past, it was due to the fact that using a built-in controller for a single pod in this instance is sort of like overkill. Like it's conceptually like we just want one instance of this pod running at all times, so we don't necessarily need to have it be backed by a type that is used for like things like horizontal scaling, or
I see what you're saying.
Going from in a deployment, going from version A to version B. So that was kind of like the idea, was that it wasn't an absolute requirement. But I think we see more and more that just basically having these unmanaged pods running in the cluster is somewhat causes issues. So essentially, it's not tenable.
I mean, I'm just trying to get context for the situation, but do we not just create a deployment for these pods? Wouldn't that handle this as well?
Yeah, deployment or replica set, either or. I mean, the deployment creates the replica set, whatever.
Oh, you're right. Sorry. It's still kind of new to the whole cube thing, but that makes sense. Okay. I don't really know how to proceed with this ticket, but I mean, if there's not buy-in, there's not buy-in right now. I think I agree with you. I mean, deployments and replica sets kind of fix this issue, and that it's a poor user experience, but I don't know.
I don't know if we have a internal epic for this on our RFE board. We may. That might be the next step in trying to bring this bring the priority of this issue up. Because I think we've seen some issues around this, and if we want to give users of catalog sources a pretty good experience, I think we have to do this, even though we may not necessarily want to or feel like it's absolutely necessary. I do believe people will keep running into issues like this. Because the alternative is like, I guess OLM in this case is not recreating it, or OLM shouldn't necessarily duplicate the logic of a built-in controller in this case necessarily. But it is, and it's not doing it successfully. So or you could check the pod condition and try to replace it. So, but it seems more correct to just use existing primitives.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that. I think it's kind of strange to duplicate the pod management methodology that CoreCube already has inside of OLM. But I mean, maybe that's what we want to do anyway. I don't know, just like from a high level overview, that seems strange, but it might be that we did that for a reason.
It's partially due to like the nature of like this long-lived gRPC API that the catalog sources surface. Like I recall Evan was telling me that like we want these pods to be around for a long time, and we kind of want to manage them ourselves.
Yeah.
But I think that managing it yourself causes these types of issues to occur.
Right.
So so I'll leave a comment. I can follow up with this by having having an item on our internal RFE board.
I think that sounds good, like a good idea.
Yeah, in terms of priority, I don't know. This number really seems to get high enough priority to actually be done, but it's worth at least trying to resurface it. I think that's okay for now. I don't mind owning this since it's sort of been looking into issues in this space. Milestones, put in the backlog. Oh, by the way, I think we did want to look at some of the issues do we want to look at the issues in the next milestone? Real fast while we're here, as I think we're going to be cutting an issue, a release of OLM at some point. Would that be valuable as well? Maybe we could circle back on that.
That sounds valuable, but yeah.
Let's just see what else we have. Okay, high CPU and memory usage. Yeah, so this is a known thing. In certain configurations of OLM, it can use high resource utilization. Can have high resource utilization. 15 operators, about 400 namespaces. Yeah. I think Tim, you left a good comment. We did definitely do some improvement on this. Yeah, it's never backported to 4.8, which is unfortunate. And there's some additional functionality in 4.10 to help alleviate high cluster load environments. Yeah. I don't know that necessarily we have anything more to add. Does anyone feel like
Is there a situation where we can backport it to 4.8, or is there a reason that we're not doing that?
I think at the time, I actually don't have the full context on this. Maybe maybe Kevin or someone has more context on it. I think. The
Sorry, I
reason it
wasn't super paying attention. I apologize.
No
What's the
problem.
question?
The question was why didn't we backport some of those performance improvements we made in OLM from 4.9 back to 4.8?
Oh, for OpenShift, it's because there were a ton of like dependency issues. That like I'm trying to remember. There's a bunch of different things that we hit. There were like a subset of things seemed like it'd be easier to backport, but in either case, it was like a lot of extra work. And it was in a bunch of in one case, it was like a non-trivial breaking change was committed to, oh God, I want to say controller runtime. And so one of our controllers just didn't work. And so we would have to like pull forward a version of something which depended on a queue dependency that we would have to like commit as well. I think that was kind of the problem, was we needed to like either fork controller runtime, or we needed to pull in a dependency that was going to cause a bunch of other problems. So because of that, we didn't, it was a new, I mean, we treated that like a new feature. So that's why.
Okay, then yeah, I feel like that's just the comment that we leave there. The comment that's already there, sorry.
Yeah, I think they're backported. Yeah.
I
So
would note that this is probably backportable now that they fixed the partial metadata issue. But what Kevin had suggested, yeah, it was basically go mod hell. But I had opened a downstream PR that was able to build correctly, because Evan had used the cache filtering changes that were introduced in CR 0.10, somewhere around there. So yeah, it was backporting that newer controller runtime version to a Kubernetes version that newer controller runtime version wasn't based on top of. But theoretically, you could pick back that work up now that they backported some partial metadata implementation fixes.
okay, it's possible, but we're talking about 4.9. Is that something? Is that something that realistically? I guess if there's high enough demand, we could backport it down to 4.8, but I don't know. Is that something that we would do realistically, Kevin, at this point? We're in 4.
I mean, that's the
4.11.
problem is nothing gets backported at this point to 4.8 except for basically like urgent bugs or anything that's like really a big customer issue, because it's in maintenance at this point. So I very much doubt we could get this in to 4.8. I think it makes more sense for this customer to just update to 4.9, and that's just what it is. Right, because it's like at some level, this is just like it costs more to run this cluster. So
Right. Sorry, guys, Slack notifications. 4.10 G8, right? So we can say 4.10. I don't know that necessarily we want to.
I think this is, we just close it.
Yeah,
Like, I really don't think, I mean, this is an OpenShift thing anyway.
yeah, it is. It is very downstream. Yeah. Okay. How to update CR when operator is updated? Does OLM provide capabilities to update CRs on its operator update? Yes. So it looks like Daniel responded to this particular issue. It's more around how OLM handles custom resource updates when the CRDs are
I mean-
upgraded, and it doesn't really handle the CRs.
Yeah, I mean, this is something that actually Alex was working on a little bit upstream in oh, actually that's exactly what Daniel is pointing to, is Alex's cap.
Yeah,
Storage version
I can speak to
migrator
that
is
quickly.
something- Yeah, if you want to talk about it.
yeah. So basically what they're getting at is that when you create a CRD, you define a stored version in it. So that's persisted to etcd. When you update a new version of your operator, anything that's like updated or changed has to be stored in that new version. And this is like usually not true if you're just like adding fields. You want to introduce a new storage version there. But if you have like increase so that the like increase validation on the API, or you introduce new required fields, you have to introduce a new stored version, and then the old stuff needs. And usually that's some of the conversion webhooks. At the you can't introduce a new version that will result in data loss right now, and there's like within the status of CRD, there's a list of stored versions that like exist in etcd, and even if you update everything to the new version, list of stored versions doesn't change. You have to manually go in and modify it. The KVSM project was created basically piece of like, oh, I introduced a new stored version and I need you to update all the existing CRs to that version. And that handles most of the problem, but it still requires a cluster admin to like go in after this migration has occurred to remove the stored version from the status. And so there's an enhancement that I wrote that kind of just outlines how we could automate that. It's kind of stalled because the solution didn't work well on high available clusters with multiple API servers. So there is like a project that's going on where there's like an API just for stored versions of CRs and other Kubernetes APIs. But until that's extended to handle CRDs, which it doesn't do today, the solution we designed is basically stalled, like Daniel said. And we don't do anything in this space because it seems to be more of a core Kubernetes API problem space, and we were hoping that we could just use the KVSM as the solution. But right now, it's a manual thing that so I don't think there's much more we can do until our existing solution is uninstalled by the introduction of the new API that's mentioned in that enhancement.
Okay, so thanks for that update, Alex. That's really interesting. So good development there is currently stalled. Effectively what you're describing.
I think our next steps really just needs to be like, hey, we are aware that this is an issue. We don't think this is something that OLM needs to handle. We think it's something that like the core API needs to be updated to handle. We made an effort to propose a solution. That solution is stalled, and most of this is kind of handled in Daniel's and we can just kind of say like we're outside of like seeing this enhancement followed through on, there's not much we can do.
Okay, so do we have any? Yeah, I guess Daniel prescribed the solution. Today, the operator responsible is the operator is responsible for this. Not really, yeah, it's not really LLM or the API server that's able to do this. Okay, Alex, since you seem to have a lot of domain expertise in this, can we assign this to you for now, and then we'll see if they feel satisfied, we can close it. I didn't hear any objections from Alex, so I'm going to go ahead and assign it to him. Okay. No problem. Let's go to the next one. Needs set labels. Okay, so they're asking for ways to set labels on the resources generated by the operator. And it looks like it's a duplicate of an existing issue. Okay, there seems to be quite a lot going on in this issue.
Yeah, I try to fix that, but right, it requires API change. So I think it's stuck. Or the one of my PR is hanging for a long time. The other one in the API side, of course, it is not accepted. So it's stuck there.
Oh, okay.
I don't know if it was the implement or it's.
Yeah, yeah. Okay. Um, so it seems like we have an implementation in place for this.
Yeah, half of it.
Half of it, and the other half is on
Because the other one requires the API change or adding something in the API side. So that thing hasn't implemented yet.
Oh, I see. Add the labels. Okay. So these labels will get projected downwards onto all the resources that the CSV
Right.
creates.
Basically, that is the idea.
Okay. Cool. Very nice. Very cool. So I guess the follow-up here would be to.
Yeah, so that's why I mean, are we going to implement it or not? Because it's API change involved. So
Yeah. Oh, I mean, it's a backwards compatible safe change. Adding it's an optional field, right? So adding an optional field. I think it's something that we can add to this. I know we don't necessarily want to make any more changes to the CSV in principle, but it seems like something that we can accept. I don't know. It's how do if others how do others feel? Is it something that we can see we can see adding a field to the CSV spec at this point, or is it just not something that we're interested in doing at all? I guess this would be a question to Kevin. Adding the labels field to the CSV spec. Or do we want to add anything to CSV spec at this point, or are we just treating it
I
as
think
is?
we really want to avoid it unless we absolutely need
Right.
to for some reason.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that's fair. Okay.
Because right, like this is a lot easier if you just drop the YAML for the webhook directly into your bundle with whatever labels you want on it.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't catch that last bit. What was it? It'd be easier if they.
Right, like if the webhook is just a deployment and the webhook YAML, you can like if in RecPack, right? If we just have raw cube manifests in your bundle, then this is no longer an OLM API. It's just part of the content of your operator, and you just
Right.
wrap it in your bundle. Like I think that anything that moves us in a direction where we're like adding specific knobs for specific things, there's so much complexity here, and every time we add one of these things, it just opens us up for getting another request for another thing, right? Like I'm skeptical that this is something we want to do.
Okay. No, that's fair. Yeah, so I guess to the point, I guess, that we don't necessarily want, I felt like we don't necessarily want to change anything on the CSV API at this point. So maybe this change won't get accepted. And okay. I don't know if we want to assign anyone to this one or this one's kind of a just a backlog candidate for now, I suppose. I'm not sure. So we have some time left. Do we want to maybe look at some of the issues we have open under the milestone and see what's going on with OLM? Because I think we want to cut a release. It might be helpful just to check on that really fast. So we cut 0.20, so 0.21. Where do I get to milestones? Okay. So we have 16 issues open in the 0.21 milestone. Okay. Wow, it's kind of a lot of issues. Okay. All right, so I guess we'll make close. Okay, it looks like this issue is the first issue in the milestone. Allow cluster admins to see what is installed as a dependency. Alex, were you able to make any progress on this issue? Okay. I'm not sure. I think Alex dropped. Okay. We can move this out then. Catalog image update test may not be tearing down correctly. This is something that I think we probably looked into with our latest set of CI improvements. It's probably was fixed, or I meant to fix it at some point. Let's leave it in the milestone for now. Operator cannot be installed normally in a cluster with PSP. Pod security policy. All right, looks like this one's also been. Can be installed. I'm not sure if any progress was made on this. I don't think. Is Vu on the call? I don't see that Vu is. I'm not sure any progress is made on this. I think we can move this out. Image built from upstream Docker file should have no shell. Yeah, so this idea is the idea that the Docker file, the Docker image that OLM ships with shouldn't have a shell in it, since the shell is sort of a security risk if it's not needed for anything. I don't know if this is necessarily something that we're going to get to in this release, but it could be a good candidate to keep in, since it does break some. I remember when you try to switch it out to a non-shell based image, it did break something, but we could try again.
I thought we,
So
I just thought we
propose
did
keep-
this. Am I wrong? I feel like Joe messed around with this a while ago.
Yeah. Let's see what our Docker file even looks like now. I mean, maybe it's not. Yeah, still using that debug to keep a shell around. So I guess not. I think I tried to do it and it broke something. So maybe we don't want to do this. Maybe we just want to keep this debug tag for backwards compatibility. But I propose it's still a useful thing to look into for this release. Maybe keep it for now and then see. Streamline upstream release process. I think this is largely done thanks to the Go releaser stuff.
Yeah, I'd agree with that.
Okay. Duplicate service for webhooks. If name does not match deployment. Okay. Looks like this issue is a result of the way SDK and OLM behave around webhooks. It doesn't look like there was any movement on this for
I
0
can-
to 1.
I can make sure to circle back to that this week. Sorry, it was a rough work week.
Yeah, no problem, Alex. I see you're assigned on this. Do you think you'll have bandwidth? Do you want to keep it in 0 to 1?
Yeah, I can look at this today. So let's leave
Okay.
it here. And sorry, my internet is going in and out. So if I've missed anything, I apologize for that.
Okay, no problem. No problem. Okay, all right. So if you get a chance to take a look, we'll keep this one in 0 to 1 for now then. Remove broken git tag. This one. Kevin, do you think that we could remove the git tag now that 3.11 is sort of out of the picture at this point, or is it still too risky? There's technically a 3.11 tag.
No one's asked us for any of this in a really long time. I imagine we can probably just remove it. And worst case scenario, we just clone older history of the repository. I don't know. I think that seems fine. That's branches. You want tags.
Yeah, the tags are all right. 3.11. Okay. Oh, is this assigned to you, Kevin? So, Kevin, do you want to maybe see if you give this a try?
Yeah, I can take care of it. Can you? I'll just pull it up right now.
Okay.
I'll bite the bullet. If someone yells at me, then they'll yell at me.
Let's try and see if anything goes wrong. Yes. Let's, okay, great. So this one looks like we'll get to resolve. Bundle unpacking doesn't retry after deadline exceeded. Even after resubscribing. Looks like this is still being actively discussed. There's some kind of article about it, but it seems like we might need to triage this more. I don't know. There hasn't really been. Any clear movement on this issue. All right, let's suppose we take this out. Remove controller runtime, replace pin. Is this something that we still have? Do we still have this pin?
Oh, it looks like there's a reference PR. Can we go to that PR and see if they removed it? Well, Tim reopen this issue.
Yeah.
And mentioned it again.
Um, yeah, I suppose we still have the.
I think that's gone with the latest version of OLM now.
Yeah, I don't see this pin anymore, at least on the upstream side. And this is sort of relevant upstream, so maybe we can just go ahead and. Oh, yeah. Clarifying comment. Flake. I'm not sure whether this particular flake has been resolved. Yeah, not much else to say. I guess we'll bring it back out to another release. Contributor experience improvements. Okay, I don't know if we necessarily got much bandwidth on this. All right, we'll move this into the next release. Don't generate kube client at runtime and testing framework. Okay. Alex, so is this referring to like refactoring the ED tests as a whole? Or is this a specific?
So I can't recall off the top of my head. I think I had a link to it just so that I would be able to remember. But we were like generating a client like during the E2E tests a bunch instead of like upfront.
Okay. So I think there is like that.
So we
CTX
just it's just.
Yeah. Sorry, you chopped in and out. Okay. Okay, so All right, so that's generally the scope of this work. I don't think we're gonna get to it in this one, so let's move it out to the next one. Define upstream release process. This is something that we've looked at for a while. I don't know that we necessarily have a consistent release schedule across all of operator framework. Yeah, I'm not sure that necessarily we have any follow-ups to this one, so we'll move it out. Go releases should generate install directions for each release. Oh, I see. This one we could leave in. Maybe it's something related to the release. Object has been modified, errors, catalog pods prevent scaling down. So this one. Oh, this one has an open PR assigned to it. So you can leave this in. Okay, so that basically takes us to time. Thank you for bearing with me as we went over the 0 to 1 milestone and triaged it a bit. I think it's in a much better place now, and I think we're in a position to cut a new OLM release in the next coming days. So I think this was very productive. With that, I think I'll cut it short for today. Thank you everyone for attending. And we'll have the working group meeting next week. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Dan.